kicking off 2022 with our AirPods Pro 2 leaks, Quo is detailing what the flagship feature might be on the second generation of these babies. Let's begin. So Mac Rumors previously received a leaked image of what they thought was second generation AirPods Pro, and it sounded kind of interesting. They attached external speakers to the charge case so that you could probably use this as kind of an AirTag style pinging device. Like if you don't know where your AirPods case went, you'd just be able to ping it, and probably with U1 chip tech be able to track down exactly where you left your AirPods, and a little wrist strap attachment as well, although I'm not sure if that's going to make it to production because the number of people that want to store their AirPods via their wrist is... I don't know who would do that, actually. Maybe you're preparing to access your AirPods very quickly. You know, you're just walking around and BAM! I need them right now! That's what the wrist strap is good for. But, of course, didn't sound like that interesting of an update. You know, having an external speaker so that you can find your AirPods a little bit easier doesn't really feel like a pro feature. That feels like something that will eventually trickle its way down into everybody's AirPods. But Quo is saying to expect lossless support to find its way onto AirPods Pro. Now, of course, as soon as I read that, I'm sure I had a very similar reaction to a lot of you guys, which is, how the heck do you do lossless to wireless headphones? Obviously, these guys don't really have a wired option of any kind, and personally, I don't think that's the backup plan. So all you audiophiles, just abandon your dreams now, because I don't think the backup was to have a wired option so that you could actually listen to lossless through your AirPods, and they were just going to add a headphone jack to each end of them. No, that's not happening. I think, based on an interview Apple had recently, where they were talking about some of the fundamental limitations Bluetooth kind of had baked in, where you just can't get the exact bandwidth you want for lossless playback. He kind of stopped himself from rambling too much, but essentially said that they want to do better than what Bluetooth is currently offering. And it makes perfect sense now that Apple Music is actually supporting lossless playback, and so many of their tracks are, you know, spatial audio supported. And with this amount of high fidelity, why wouldn't you upsell people on lossless headphones? It feels even more bizarre that AirPods Max don't even have lossless playback, and they have a wired option, which makes this report even more confusing to me because it implies that AirPods Pro, which don't have a wired option at all, and of course are far cheaper than AirPods Max, these are supposed to get lossless playback before the over-ears do? Very confusing. I don't really understand why Apple would roll it out in that fashion, but knowing what we know about how Apple does support lossless playback with HomePods, both the HomePod Mini and even the OG HomePod got firmware updates so that they can actually stream at high bandwidth the lossless signal, but they're able to do that because they're streaming that signal directly over Wi-Fi. It's not a connection via Bluetooth, and despite what other leakers were saying, I was trying to be clear about that when everyone was getting excited for lossless playback on Apple Music. I was like, guys, there's no software update, there's no firmware update that will magically make all of our AirPods support lossless. There was a fundamental limiting factor there, whereas the modems on our current AirPods are not designed to stream over Wi-Fi. The only way you can play any audio to these things is via Bluetooth, and that's that, okay? HomePods actually had the hardware necessary to stream music over Wi-Fi, which of course can handle the higher bitrate stuff. AirPods fundamentally did not. So maybe with AirPods Pro 2, Apple is planning on baking in some better modems so that perhaps the AirPods themselves can stream directly over Wi-Fi and therefore play lossless audio just as good as your HomePod does. But that also would be quite a drain on battery life to be converting that much signal into your headphones, which is why I'm excited for AirPods Pro 2, just because these are still my go-to pair of headphones for most tasks. I've been using them a lot lately, mowing the lawn, and I'll be taking a flight soon, so I plan on using them a lot on that flight. But the main reason a lot of people have said lossless on AirPods doesn't really make much sense is because the fidelity that these drivers are capable of is really not going to make that big a difference with lossless. Even if you could, in some magical, mythical way, hardwire a lossless signal into these things, because of how they're designed, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, which is why I get a little bit excited for lossless playback on AirPods Pro 2, not just because I care about lossless playback. Honestly, I don't really notice the difference anyway, but it should mean Apple is actually updating the hardware and the drivers in these next generation headphones so that you can notice an improved difference in sound quality, and you can actually grasp a lot of that AirPods Max style sound and put it into individual buds. And if they are going to be playing back at a higher bitrate, that's going to use up more battery, so I assume we could get better battery life with these things as well. well, which is far overdue considering AirPods Pro basically have the worst battery life in the entire lineup right now. AirPods 3 just made the jump to 6 hours. I'm not necessarily saying AirPods Pro 2 have to make that same jump, but I'm all in favor of better battery life, not really because I often run out of juice with my AirPods Pro, but more so because as time goes on, the cycles increase on these tiny batteries, and the battery degradation hits AirPods the hardest because they by far use the smallest batteries out of all of our electronics, which means you only have to use these things for 2 to 3 years before, oh, one of them's dying already? That was quick. And especially when I'm using my headphones for FaceTiming and podcasting, that's when I have to do this whole musical chair act of swapping out headphones and popping them back into the case and charging them, taking them out again. So better battery life overall would be a welcome addition to AirPods Pro 2, but my only concern about that is there's been previous reports claiming that the next generation AirPods Pro would ditch the stem, which I've talked about in the past. This stem is actually really useful. I love the force stem technology. It makes it easier to pull the headphone out of my ear, and that's a great place to store your battery. So if Apple is actively looking at ways of getting rid of the stem, I'm hoping that, they have something in plan to replace the force stem and something that can improve battery life as well. Because right now the stem feels like useful space that I don't need lost, because I really don't think it looks that bad to have stems coming out of your ears. It's just kind of become the normal now. People are used to seeing this and they know they're AirPods. It's not really that weird, and I don't think Apple needs to put a bunch of engineering and investment into getting rid of the stems because they're awfully functional, and I would be fine if they stayed as long as better battery life came along with it. The weirdest part about this report by far, though, is the fact that Apple would prioritize lossless on the individual buds and not AirPods Max. The only thing we've heard about AirPods Max is that Apple might be toying around with some new color options, but there's been no rumors and no leaks so far suggesting that they plan on actually refreshing the cups and the drivers themselves. Maybe the I/O, maybe make it USB-C or throw a headphone jack in there for the lossless stuff. No rumors about that, even though we have a long list of things we would like changed about AirPods Max. Get it cheaper, improve the case, support the lossless playback. Obviously, they're $600, Apple, come on. And yet, no, they don't want to focus on that. They want to bring, AirTag functionality to the case and bring lossless playback to the headphones themselves, which is a bit bizarre. What also kind of gets me excited is Apple coming up with their own standard that can kind of replace Bluetooth, because at least in the last interview, they talked a lot about how Bluetooth is just not cutting it for them. So if they are able to come up with their own alternative of like ultra wideband technology, so you could actually have a lossless signal done wirelessly and the AirPods don't have to pull the signal directly from the internet, which would probably use a lot more battery, that could have some interesting potential, especially for AR glasses later, if you're able to wirelessly send that much audio and video. Hopefully it doesn't require us to all buy a new iPhone for this feature to work. That would be kind of frustrating, but either way, it certainly has piqued my interest with AirPods Pro 2, and I'm far more curious to see what Apple does with it later this year than I was a couple days ago. So it may be a long wait though. Quo says not to expect these until the fourth quarter, so we've got a ways to go. But let me know how you think Apple's gonna do lossless on AirPods Pro. What features would you like Apple to prioritize in the next generation? All that good stuff. Feel free to let me know what you're thinking down below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.